Good morning, everyone. My name is Roelof Lamberts at ServiceNow. Welcome to today's webinar about the ServiceNow HR Automation Suite, co-hosted by our partner Termination. This webinar will be recorded, and you will receive a link to the recorded version within the next 48 hours after the webinar has ended. And I would like to encourage everyone to ask as many questions as possible using the chat functionality or the Q&A box that's also available on your WebEx tool. For now, I would like to hand it over to Elmar de Valk, who will be the host for this session. Elmar, it's yours.
Thank you, Roelof, and thanks everyone for joining us in this webinar on HR service automation. The agenda of today. I will do a very brief elevator pitch about our company Termination, and then dive into the meat with the typical HR challenges that we see at clients, the ServiceNow HR features that present an answer to these challenges, then dive into a demo of some of these features, then explain a little bit on how ServiceNow can be fitting into your existing HR application landscape, and if time permits, at the end we will also give you some details on a specific client case, and of course we will end with Q&A in the end. So that's the agenda for today. So shortly about our company. Termination is a ServiceNow implementation and technology partner, and basically we set ourselves apart from other players in the market because of the fact that we perceive ServiceNow not only as a software as a service tool with modules for all kinds of processes, but we personally see that ServiceNow is more than just software. It's actually a platform for rapid application development to allow you to basically use it for all kinds of different business processes within HR and of course also outside of HR. Who's talking to you today? That's actually the guy here in the pictures on the left, standing next to Fred Luddy, with the red tie, and I will try to entertain you in the coming let's say 45 to 60 minutes. So into the HR case. So what we see is that HR departments are faced with several challenges, which are, I would say, also not unique to HR. We see those challenges also in other service management areas like IT and facility management. But we see that there is a constant focus to reduce HR staff levels, where at the same time there's also a need to increase employee satisfaction rates with the provided services. So that is done via the fact that you want to enhance self-service to allow employees to find answers to questions. You would also want to enhance communications to your employees to inform them about important events and to inform them about the status of information requests that they have submitted. And you want to, of course, have the relevant dashboards and reports available to allow you to steer your department. You want to reduce mistakes and you want to speed up processes. So to summarize, basically HR departments want to do more with less. So how does ServiceNow come into play? So ServiceNow is a tool to basically connect employees and managers with an HR department. So it allows HR to streamline the interactions with your clients. What we see in many organizations is that these interactions within an HR department are not purely and solely supported by ServiceNow. We also see a lot of situations where additional systems are put in place, self-service options from HR packages like Workday and other tools. We also see that in other departments like IT and facility management, and of course also procurement, finance, legal, etc. There's also several different tools and portals in place that allow you to structure and streamline the interactions between these departments and employees. So we see that ServiceNow is particularly focused on a couple of use cases, one of which being HR case management, and of course the standard request management for example, requests related to, for example, pregnancy leave and other kinds of standard requests. So the unique functionality that we developed together with our client, which I'll also briefly touch later on in this presentation, are the following. So what we did is we created a feature for HR case management. So we used the standard out-of-the-box module for HR case management and basically added the additional fields and workflows to ensure that it fully meets the client demands. And what that basically resulted in is increased auditability of HR cases, which is quite important from the perspective of legal, of course, and it also enhanced the resolution times. Secondly, we implemented a custom portal that included a number of standard requests, for example, to apply for a lease car or to submit a request for maternity leave. And what we saw is that by implementing these standard requests, we enhanced the possibilities of doing straight-through processing. So meaning that you submit a request once and that it can be processed by an operations department or by an interface without asking additional clarifying questions to the submitting employee. Thirdly, what we did is we developed functionality for the hire process. So in this particular case, our client saw that managers had difficulty interacting with the Taleo recruiting system. So what we did is in ServiceNow we created a form to submit vacancies, which are then interfaced to the Taleo system. And by this we basically accomplished two things. Managers have a more unified point of entry to connect with HR, and also we simplified that process significantly, therefore enhancing user satisfaction. The fourth component is concerning changes, employee changes. So what we see is that a majority of the requests that are handled by typical HR operations departments have to do with people moving from departments or changing in salary scales or changing in functions, etc. And these make up the bulk of the work of the HR operations department, and streamlining all these requests and ensuring that these requests enter the operations department without errors, basically just enhances throughput time and really has a significant effect on the required HR staff levels that need to be in place to process these requests. The last component is concerning leave. We've created a functionality for basically a workflow that allows HR to manage the process of employees leaving the company, where they are automatically informed about the steps they need to take to hand over equipment, and also a process to ask for and to calculate the remaining vacation hours and calculate, in this case, employee discounts. So these are also the cases that I will show you in the demo. So I will try to get into the demo right away. So the structure is I will show you a little bit of the content management system of the portal, show you a little bit about HR case management, about the placing of vacancy requests, changes to personnel data, and for the contract termination process. So I will log on into ServiceNow, and I will go into the portal. This is a portal which we adapted from our client case. So our client case in this case is related to a large bank here in the Netherlands. And this portal, when you as an employee enter this portal, it can be to look at the status of your requests. which are already in place, so you see what stage these requests are in, and you can also see the status and information of your questions, and you can also, of course, dive deeper into these questions to see what the answers are or what has happened. So for this particular use case, I will try to submit a question. And so in this case, I will click on the following link, and I will raise a question on behalf of myself, and I will start typing a brief description of my question in this field. So in this case, my question concerns something with SAP, and what happens here is that by typing in some words here in the brief description, automatically a search is performed on the knowledge base, and therefore some relevant knowledge articles are shown. So in this case, an article is shown that this person is unable to access SAP. And of course, if this knowledge article is relevant, it actually removes the need for a user to actually submit this question. Therefore, it reduces also the load on a typical HR department. So in this case, SAP is about SAP HR and the fact that I need to find my cases. I can also add some additional comments here in this additional description field. So I'm now going to press submit, and by that I'm going to enter this question into the tool. So what I'll now do is I'll go into the let's say the normal ServiceNow user interface. So I'll move away from the portal. So this is let's say what the normal user interface looks like. I will log in as a user called Harry Richards, which in this case is a user that has the rights to access the human resources module. So this particular resource is of course monitoring the cases that flow in. So this person can look, for example, within the case management section of this module at the new and reopened cases, and you can actually see that the sub HR I need to find my cases question has already been included in this list. Of course, it's also to look at these cases from my work or my group's work. So let me then just open the case, and what you will then see is that this is basically the configuration that we have created, where on the one hand you see all the information related to the caller and on behalf of whom the caller has registered the request and possibly who the call concerns. So for this particular configuration, there is a difference between someone that submits a call, for example, for her manager, and actually if the call is related to a specific a team staff member of that manager. So you have three different user details that can add to this case. On the other side, we see the classification of the case. So in this case, it's a case of the type question, and I can also see that it's actually a status question, and I can also just add some additional categories. So let me just fill in this form. Of course, these categories, you need to take particular care in defining these categories if you want to implement HR case management for your organization, because this information has got a very big value for an HR department, because based on this, you can actually understand where the most problems are, most questions are originating from, and take the appropriate steps, for example, submitting news bulletins or updating your website in order to prevent those questions to be entered in the first place. So in this case, the assignment group, I will assign this ticket to myself, being Harry, which automatically sets the case state to active. I can also understand that the information was not available on our intranet site, or was available on our intranet site, so it could have been prevented. I'm going to make a save to this, and hereby the case is attached to Harry Richard. When working on the case, you can of course also change the priority levels, and changing the priority levels will also have an impact on the related SLAs. So if I scroll down, What I see here in the bottom of the case are the task SLAs, so you can see that we can track, for example, response times, and we can also track the resolution times of the case. And if I change the priority, then by that also the SLAs will change accordingly, because in this case a priority high case will of course lead to a quicker resolution than a priority moderate. Another thing to highlight here, actually two things to highlight here, is first of all, you can also see the cases that are logged by the same user. So in this case, if you see that there's an overlap between the case that you are working on and other cases related to that user, then you're able to see that information, possibly see what has happened on that case, and benefit from the work that has already been done. And the last point to note here is that you can see here in the activity log all the important changes that have been made to this case. So in this case, I'll also add a work note and press save. And by that, you're able to basically do two things. You're able to create an audit log based on which you're able to look back what has happened with respect to this case. You're able to also easily hand over the case if another of your HR colleagues steps in and takes over this case. So, summarizing, HR case management, full audit trail, easy handover, reduced administrative load, and you also have the possibility to make automatic assignments. So the second thing on the demo is to submit a leave request. So in this case, I will go back to the portal before, of course, changing to myself. I'm going to go back to the portal. I'm going to go to the form section, and I'm going to register a job vacancy request. So again, typically for this client, this was quite a troublesome process, and what we did is we basically just created a very intelligent form in ServiceNow in order to basically make the administrative pains for a manager lower. So what you see here is that there is a number of pre-fill options. So in this case, I can create a job vacancy based on an existing team member, but I can also create a job vacancy based on a previous job vacancy request that I've made. So if you create, basically, you have a team and you want to create similar requests, then you're able to reuse a lot of that information in order to make the administrative load lower. So I'm going to select a team member, so for example, my colleague Sjoerd, and in that case, automatically some function details are retrieved from the database. And I can also say I want to have a permanent staff assigned to my team, and I'm going to add some additional details. So I'm going to add a location, I'm going to add a location code, I'm going to add a certain department. So for example, it's the HR department. And what happens, it automatically sees that if I state that it's the HR department, that it's an invalid entry because I need to have another format available. So in this case, I'm going to use the correct format, and this is already an example of what can be done with ServiceNow in order to prevent erroneous entries by a user. So I'm going to create the vacancy text in English with a certain title, and of course I can add change the vacancy text the way I feel fit. It's also of course possible to add pre-filled vacancy texts here. I'm going to scroll down. The person to contact will be myself. I can also add some additional information, and lastly I can press the submit button. While I'm pressing submit, I will get an error because what happened, I missed a mandatory field, being the preferred start date. So I'm going to scroll up and I can see here the preferred start date. I need to fill this in as well. And again, this is just an example of the checks that can be added to forms like this. I'm going to now press submit, and this will initiate a workflow, because this is just the first step. So it will initiate the workflow as a status draft. And basically what this does, this job vacancy request will move through a couple of stages from draft to open to approved and to closed. So in this case, as a manager, I end up in the draft status, and it says here on the top, this is a draft. When you are finished, click the submit button to submit the request. So I will do that, meaning that the workflow will be changed to open. In this case, a recruiter will step in and will review the request, and once he is certain that all the relevant information is correctly included in this vacancy request, then he will approve, and therefore that will also trigger the interface to Taleo. Once in Taleo a candidate has been found and an offer has been given, and you want to onboard that particular resource into that company, then in this case, for this client, I will not demo this live, but what we also created is a mechanism that ensures that all the details that are captured in this step, the job vacancy request step, are all reused in the onboarding form, which basically meant that now approximately 80% of the data that previously needed to be filled by a manager to start an onboarding is now copy-pasted from this particular vacancy request. So that's with the forms related to job vacancies. The third thing that I would like to show you is a order guide. Is the order guide functionality in ServiceNow, and I can use this order guide to actually ask for a change in employee data. So I can select the name of an employee. And I can state that I want to have for example, a department change and a job title change and a salary or rate change. And then I can go to the next part of the process where I can fill in the exact details. If I would have selected another user, so for example my colleague Stuart, it would have actually picked up the fact that that is a internal employee, and then it would also show you different options. So let me also show that. So I'm going to select my colleague Stuart, and then you see that this is an internal employee of the type permanent, and then you can also see that I can make different changes. But for this particular case, let me just go back to Abel Tutor and just tick some boxes here and go to fill in the amendments. So an order guide like this is also very useful if you want to use ServiceNow not only to submit requests for an HR change, but also if you want to work together more closely with, for example, your facility and your IT departments. So in this case, you can also think that, for example, if you also want to add additional authorizations, IT authorizations, you could also tick that checkbox, and then it would initiate a request and a task for your IT department. So this is, I think, where using order guides like this, the strength of ServiceNow is shown in that it can be used not only within a single department, but that it can be used across the service management landscape, so within both IT, HR, and facility management. Okay, so I'm going to change the department. I'm going to add in an effective date, and what it says here is that it's actually a wrong date. So again, business intelligence is preventing me, business rules are preventing me from filling in incorrect data. So in this case, I need to fill in a Monday, 1 month in the future. So that would be the effective date, and of course the department ID I also can fill in here, and I can then of course go to change the other areas. Yeah. So I will not fill in all these different changes for the sake of the speed in this webinar. So this is basically what can be shown if you use the order guide functionality in ServiceNow. The last thing that I would like to show you is again a workflow process. It has to do with the leave process, so contract terminations. And again, I'm going to log in as myself. I'm in the forms section of the portal of the content management system, and I'm going to go to the form for leave. So here I can state that, for example, my colleague Dennis is leaving. I've got a little bit of issues with my keyboard, so that's interesting. No problem. And I'm going to state the exact date on which he will be leaving with a certain reason for termination. And then I'm going to press submit. I can also look up this particular request item also from the normal user ServiceNow interface site. So I'm going to log in again as Harry Richards and going back into the human resource application menu, and I'm going to look for the open forms with the number that I've just submitted. So what you can do here on this, in lists like this, and also if you look at the particular request leave, a leave request is usually surrounded with a lot of emotions and feelings of a lot of parties. So also you don't want to have these forms to be publicly available for all people that are a user, an HR user of the ServiceNow system. So in this case, ServiceNow can actually be the security model of ServiceNow can actually be tailored to ensure that only authorized people within your HR department are able to handle these leave forms. So I'm going to open up this particular form, and I can go to a unique functionality that we've created, which is the macro mail. So in this case, what I can do in this leave form is I can create a specific mail for this leaving employee to instruct him of what he needs to do when he needs to hand in his items and leaves your company. So creating an email like this, so in the functionality that we have set up, I can include several items. So in this case, I can state that this particular user has got a SIM card and a laptop. He also has a lease car and a travel card. And he will, the settlement months will be February. So when I now, for example, press the preview email button, and what it will do is actually it will use the selected cases, so the checkboxes, to actually create an email that can then be printed or copy pasted and then be sent to that particular user. So in this case, it's sent in both English and in Dutch, of course. So here you see that you need to return your SIM card, you need to return your NS business card, you need to return your laptop, and also your lease car contract will be terminated. So this is the functionality for leave. Also, what I will not be showing you, but what's also in place, is that there's also workflow support to ask for managers to approve the vacation hour balances, and also an additional process for this particular client to ask for the existence of employee discounts when an employee has bought products from this particular company. So this is high level the demo. So going back to the presentation, so what we have shown you is that you have a simple portal that you can set up, which can be also aligned, of course, to your company's style guides. You can use the HR case management to ensure that you have a structured and quick resolution of questions, suggestions, and complaints. You can create all kinds of business logic to ensure that requests are properly created by your users. And there's all kinds of opportunities to create workflows and additional steps to ensure that your work processes within your HR department are handled more efficiently, and that people know what to do when. So this was the demo. So the last items on the agenda are to go a little bit deeper into the HR application architecture, and also to give some highlights on the client case that we have used also for this demo. So the HR architecture. So what we see that if you look at the HR application landscape and you look at it from the perspective of an employee needing to interact with your HR department, we can actually distinguish between 3 layers, 2 of which can actually be approached by the employee. So the first and top layer is a content management system, which could be several systems, but we typically also see, for example, products like SharePoint that are used here. And what it can be used for is to check, for example, the latest news or to find certain information. Below that, we see that there is a self-service layer, which is, of course, more dynamic and interactive. And here you can, for example, initiate chat conversations, or register complaints, or initiate requests, or check the status of questions and requests, and possibly browse through knowledge articles. And then below these 2 layers of interaction that are exposed to your employees are the applications that concern your HR backend processes. So, for example, the processes that are supported here are the process of posting job vacancies, to run your payrolls, to maintain pensions, to do your labor contract management, etc., etc. So, high level, this is the layers that we see in the HR application landscape. So if we plot ServiceNow on top of those 3 layers, then we can actually see 3 different scenarios. So we see that ServiceNow can be used as more of like a point solution specifically for case management, HR case management and request fulfillment. And by that, if you want to integrate it fully into your existing HR application landscape, then you would like to use iframing technology to ensure that ServiceNow functionality is exposed through your existing application. So, for example, if a user is using SharePoint, it can actually interact with ServiceNow via a dynamic iframe that is visualized within SharePoint. Another way of looking at it is let's say the extended catalog functionality. So what we see is that the existing self-service tools that are offered by the main parties in the market, like PeopleSoft and Workday, those catalog functions are quite extensible. However, the amount of making changes to that in order to make it fully aligned with your department's needs are quite limited, actually. So I think that's also where the strong point of ServiceNow comes into play, and where ServiceNow is truly a platform, and that you can actually use it to build all kinds of business rules to ensure that you build the requests to ensure that errors are prevented and that an efficient process is followed. The third option is actually to use ServiceNow as a strategic platform, and strategic platform in this case means that ServiceNow will be used as the single point of entry for all your employee communications. And ideally, this is then not only the case for your HR organization, but from a strategic point of view, you would actually like to have ServiceNow in place as a strategic point of entry for both HR and also your other shared services departments like IT, facility, etc. So this is an important choice that can be made. And of course, if you have existing self-service options available in your existing tools, then you can also expose those via, again, iframing technology within ServiceNow. And I think that a very good example of how that can actually be used in practice is the ServiceNow organization themselves, which actually use ServiceNow as the single point of entry for all employees to interact with a variety of service management departments. At the bottom side of the red box, which indicates where ServiceNow could come into play, you see that there's also a room for custom applications. And so again, ServiceNow, we see it as a rapid application development platform. So if your organization has got processes which are currently supported either manual or via Excel or via for example, SharePoint solutions, which are basically not giving you the support that you actually need, and then you can actually use ServiceNow to create additional applications to support those processes. So an example of what our client did is they've created a custom application to support organization transformation projects. So this is where ServiceNow could come into play. So if you look at the client case that I want to address, then actually that is actually positioned, I would say, between the extended catalog and the strategic platform. So here our client uses the extended catalog, as you've already seen in the demo, to allow you to request all kinds of intelligent requests. But they've also used the custom application development features to actually build custom apps on the platform as well. So, and the client that I'm talking about in this case is ING Bank. They've recently also posted something on the social media, which they basically expressed that they are quite happy with what ServiceNow has been able to do for them. So the background of this case was that ING HR is under pressure to reduce headcount. They serve a great many of colleagues, 25,000 to be exact, in a multi-channel strategy called Click, Call, Face, where the objective is to try to service their clients and their internal colleagues in the same way as ING also serves the clients outside of ING, so they're real banking clients. And in this case, it actually means that HR would like to ensure that their colleagues use as much as possible self-service functionalities, because it helps in user satisfaction and at the same time it reduces costs. ServiceNow, of course, was selected by ING to actually do this work, and we as Platformation were selected as implementation partner to deliver the work. So you've already seen in the demo of some particular examples of what we managed to produce for ING, but what is maybe more interesting is what was actually the result of this intervention. So the results was actually broken down into 6 components. So first of all, it has led measurably to a higher satisfaction of employees with the HR services. So in fact, the satisfaction rates increased with 1 whole point, which is actually quite significant. Of course, because of all the business logic that was added to the forms, it was a huge enabler for enhancing the straight-through processing initiative, so to ensure that requests are handled without mistakes and without the need to contact the employees, the submitting employees. Email costs were reduced, so in the original situation a lot of email was used to handle interactions, and now that's all done via ServiceNow, and therefore enhancing the auditability and also the transferability of cases. A number of applications were decommissioned. The insights that are now given to the HR organization have enhanced, so they are now much more able to understand where the most questions arise and to take appropriate actions to ensure that cases are prevented rather than solved. And of course, if you sum up all these benefits, the end result is that ING is enabled to realize FTE reduction targets. So these are is a brief overview of the client case. So the next item on the agenda is the Q&A. So
thank you very much, Elmar. Very useful information. We have already received quite a few questions. First question is there any way to integrate ServiceNow with our telephony application, the client's telephony application? Can you take that question?
Yes, of course. It's a good question. So what we see is that also ING is also looking into that particular question. So indeed, ServiceNow has got standard options to integrate with telephony systems. That's called CTI integration. And what it actually does is that when a caller calls your telephony system, your telephony system generates a URL, a ServiceNow URL, and when that opens, the caller or the operator that is sitting behind your telephony system automatically is confronted with the relevant details of that caller. So that can be either the existing calls of that caller or the user properties of the person that has called.
Yeah.
So indeed, that's possible to realize.
Okay, that's clear. Next question, Elmar, is about the implementation time of the HR case management module at your client that you mentioned.
Yeah, so that is so basically that answer is actually broken up in three pieces, because what we did is we followed a Scrum kind of an approach there, where we brought the application live in actually 3 iterations. So in the first iteration, we brought live the functionality for HR case management, a portal, and some initial requests. And that was actually delivered in a time frame of between, let's say, 10 and 12 weeks. So that was actually quite a quick implementation. And after that, we've spent also actually a couple of months, let's say 3 to 4 months, to fully getting the system up in place for all kinds of additional workflows related to the onboarding, for example, and the leave processes.
Okay. Then I have another question. Which parts of the demo are out of the box, and which parts have been configured specifically for the client?
Yeah, so what we did for the client is that we built all the piece of functionality using basically the out-of-the-box facilities that are offered by ServiceNow. So therefore, everything that was built in the tool is fully upgradable and maintainable. So I think that if you look at what you get out of the box, if you look at how case management is currently configured, I think that is quite in line with how you would get that out of the box. Especially if you look at the posting of job vacancies and for example, a macro mail functionality that I've shown in the leave processes. I think that is where we added some additional application configuration. I also saw, Roelof, that there was also a question related to the legal side of things. I think that this is something that is different for different clients. So what we did to reuse the ING example is that actually quite a significant amount of data is actually stored in the ServiceNow database. And actually ServiceNow, as you might be aware, the hardware or the servers are actually serviced in the Equinex data center in Amsterdam, with a failover in the UK. So what you see is that this data is not leaving the European Union, and therefore it's actually very much in line with the laws and regulations that are related to this subject. I think it is a sensitive area because we are dealing with all kinds of sensitive HR data. So we see that ING has gone to a certain extent, and I think it is dependent on the exact client needs of what is sensible for that client to do. So I think that if you look at the legal side of things, then I would advise you to get in contact with your ServiceNow representative to actually discuss this in more detail, because they also have the relevant information in place regarding all kinds of certifications and other kinds of let's say specialists in place to assist your security specialist with these decisions, important decisions.
Okay. Another question, we have Workday in place. Which architecture scenario is best fitting for this environment?
Yeah, so Workday, I think if you look at what Workday has to offer out of the box, I think that it has a very strong, so I'll also just try to pop up the slide as we are talking about it. So I think that Workday has got a very strong self-service capability, both in mobile, via iPads and iPhones, and also of course browser-based. I think that there's still, let's say, room for ServiceNow to contribute there, because what we have seen is that for example, the requests, the standard requests that can be submitted via Workday can be it can be tailored for your specific organization, but we do see that ServiceNow, because it has been built as a platform and not as a software solution, is more flexible. So I think that especially in the field of, for example, creating job vacancies, and we see that possibly a system like Workday is maybe not far advanced enough to actually to do the same thing what a ServiceNow could do. But I think here also it's a matter of just discussing the situation, understanding what you have in place and what you feel needs to be improved, and then just going to the whiteboard and sketching out solutions.
Okay, final question from some other people as well. If they have some remaining questions, how can they reach us?
It's also a good question. It's actually, I also have a slide for that in the deck. So I think that you are able maybe to reach out to Roelof. I think that he will be able to direct your questions to the appropriate people here at ServiceNow. And of course, you can also reach out to myself via my email address, and you can also get in contact via info@platformation.com.
Okay, thank you very much, Elmer. And for some closing remarks, I would like to hand it over to you.
Yeah, so just closing remarks. So I would also like to thank everyone for attending the webinar. I hope it was useful to a certain extent. And if there's any more questions, then indeed, please reach out. And I'm just going to say thank you and leave you with this this post via Computer World UK, where ING Group has stated what they have done with ServiceNow for their HR system. So maybe you can look it up and explore it in more detail and to see if it's fitting for your situation. So thanks again, and I hope to speak to you soon.